Hello, cs245 students. Welcome back from break, wherever you are. And we're about to do Lab 5, which has been posted since about the beginning of break. And this is a lecture with some of the important things that you need to know. We're going to start with a little bit of review. And it's a review from what? Your word count lab. So let's take a look at some of the basic ideas again, because you're going to see this on your next quiz. The basic ideas behind some of that code. And we're going to just be looking at the part where you're reading the text from standard input a line at a time. All right? So, going back to code, we had a hash define. Some people say pound define. We had a hash define, and then we defined this label max size to be 100. And then we had a char inbuff is what? It's an array of characters, and that's the size of the array. And this is the preprocessor, if you'll recall. That's down. Preprocessor. And you recall what the preprocessor does. It sees this max size here, and it replaces it. Actually edits the source. We illustrated that in class. It edits the source of your program so that this becomes 100. And it's not the number 100, it's actually this string. If instead of 100 I had there like foo, you would put foo in here, which of course would probably not work. But instead I have 100. Okay, so this will be inbuff is an array of 101 characters. Now we're going to imagine that this array is over here. I'm going to imagine for purposes of a lecture that it's starting at the address 31dog6. That's a number. It's an address in memory of the first byte of the array. And this whole array is going to be, 101. Of course, it's that was off out of the screen. This whole array is going to be from here to here. It's going to be 101 long. Okay. So the first address is at 31dog6, and the last address will be at 31d6 plus, that's hex, right? And then plus 100, all right? And so 100 hex is what? 64? So, that's not right. All right, some number, okay. Got it? Okay, so that's the setup. That's how we've defined our array. That's going to be our input buffer there. All right. So now we'll have an infinite loop. I think I showed you the infinite loop with a for, a while. In C, non-zero is treated as a true, zero is treated as a false. So we could say while 1 would be an infinite loop. Then we're going to call fgets. Fgets is the reading routine. And we're reading from standard input. And that's the maximum number of bytes that we're going to read, or the maximum number of bytes we're going to read will be actually max size. And this is telling fgets that that's the size of the memory where the input goes. The size of the memory where the input goes, which is then going to be 100. Okay? And then we have inbuff over here. And you will recall that we don't actually pass arrays to subroutines in C. There's no such thing as passing an array to a subroutine. And here I have just the name of the array. So if I put just the name of the array here, and I'm not passing an array, what does it mean? Well, what it means is it's going to be the address of the first byte of input. All right? It literally puts that number there. 31.6 over here. Okay? It's the address of the first byte input. Right? So fgets is passed the address of this spot in memory, which is in your program. It says this is how many bytes it has to play with. If you got this number wrong, then fgets could easily write past the end of whatever. Okay? So all it knows is that it's starting here, and that's how many bytes it has. There's nothing stopping it from going further aside from, if you put the wrong number there, right? Okay? And it's reading from standard input. All right? So this will read a line, and we'll put the line in there. If the line is too long, it will stop it at 100. Or it'll stop it at whatever that size is. Okay? All right? And the +1 over here, the +1 is so that we have an extra byte to put a 0. Because if you remember in C, strings are, you start at some spot in memory and you keep going until you get to a 0. So fgets, if it reads 50 bytes, a 50 character line, it's going to use 51 characters of memory. And then that last character, that last byte of memory, will be the 0 which fgets puts there. So that's why all these +1s are floating around. All right? Just to remind you that there's an extra byte that you don't get to use, because it's going to be the 0, which is at the end. Okay? So let's imagine that we read a line off of a file which says, these are, as in these are the times that try people's souls, blah, blah, blah. These are. Okay? So the line on the file was these are. What's going to happen? It'll go into here. E-H-E-S-E space A-R-E. There'll be a new line character at the end. Remember, \n is a new line character. And then there'll be a 0. So, and then we're not anywhere near the end of 100 bytes, 101 bytes. But that's what we're going to get. So this is a \n, is a new line. Okay? And these will be the ASCII codes. And I guess in the next lab we'll see some ASCII codes. But these will be the ASCII codes for, and this will be a byte which contains numerically 0. It's not a character 0. It's just numerically a byte with all the bits off. It's 0. Okay. So that's what gets done with this fgets. When you try to read past the end of the file, all right, you get a 0 there, and then it fgets returns a 0, and you can break out a while. All right. So anyway, this is your basic read loop, which is going to read each line of input. And that's really similar. It's identical to what you had before in your previous Nicholas lab with word counts. The difference being, of course, that now in that lab you had one word per line, and you were making a linked list of long words. Now you actually have multiple words per line. So that's like kind of the big step up in this lab, and that'll be the next video.